So it's becoming increasingly obvious that accusations of racism have become the last refuge of a scoundrel. And I get why they do it, because it's been this magic spell. A magic spell used to shroud the minds of those who don't agree with you with confusion and fear. And it worked remarkably well for a long time. I'm afraid now the spell is broken, but they just haven't figured that out yet. Now here's a headline. Rings of Power calls out racism against cast members of color. Now, is there really a bunch of racism against cast members of color? Or does it have more to do with this? Average audience score, 39%. Now, the critics love it, of course, and you knew that they would. They have to. They don't want to be accused of racism against cast members of color. So it looks like they've kept themselves pretty safe. The audience, on the other hand, they didn't get the memo that not liking Rings of Power, which is terribly written and acted, they didn't get the memo that not liking that was racism. It says here that after an inundation of racist attacks, and of course when they say that, we just have to believe it, I suppose, Amazon Prime Video's Lord of the Rings, Rings of Power, has released a statement on Twitter expressing that they refuse to ignore or tolerate the racism, threats, and harassment and abuse that some of their castmates of color face daily. Again, are you sure that it's that, or it's just that people don't like it? So the only explanation from your point of view must be that they're all racist. It says, claiming that the series is a misrepresentation of author J.R.R. Tolkien's Middle-earth, comments have emerged across social media rejecting the show's diversity. Well, first off, it is a misrepresentation. Middle-earth clearly is not written the way that it's shown in the series, but worse than that, though, much worse than that, is that it's just so poorly written. That's really the problem. The problems with the Rings of Power are not just skin deep. The problem is that it just doesn't feel like Middle-earth. Galadriel, or Gailadriel, as they're calling her now, is not a character in this that Tolkien would have written, and she's the star. That's the problem right there. Also, she's not very good. Here's another headline. Lord of the Rings of Power skeptics aren't racist trolls, and House of the Dragon can prove it. Says there's no denying it. Most viewers cannot stand Lord of the Rings of Power. The new Amazon series has a 39% rating on Rotten Tomatoes, despite the contradictory 85% critic rating. Showrunners and mainstream media insist that people hate the adaptation because they can't stand seeing black actors added to the cast. And so I have to say that it's awfully strange then that House of the Dragon would have an 85% audience score. You would think would have pretty much an almost complete overlap in audience. So people who would watch Rings of Power would also be watching the House of the Dragon. And House of the Dragon has a race swap in it. So if the only factor in the low audience score for Rings of Power is that everybody's a racist, I guess somehow they all became not racist when they watched House of the Dragon. And of course, it's just because House of the Dragon is much, much, much better written and much better acted. It's just better content. And so it's overcoming any problems that it would have with the cast not looking like the characters they imagined. So in other words, this show's good, so no racism problems. Rings of Power, bad, so that's just racism. Or that's what they would have you think. Let's take a look at some of these racist comments. Difficult at times to watch. Fails to capture any Tolkien archetypes or go beyond sophomoric level dialogue. Characters are not impacted by their decisions in logical ways that generate tension or a sense of intrigue. The audience is spoon-fed a plot that is closer to a game of checkers than chess. The magical feel of the world feels diminished and small. The overall feel is hollow, with a heavy emphasis on telling and not showing. Too much exposition with no respect for the source material. Sadly, it lacks what I would have expected. Between the butchered Tolkien lore, awful storyline, unlikable protagonists, and boring plot, this series was such a missed opportunity. I've tried to get excited for it, but it's just so rubbish. $1 billion? I don't see it. Seriously bad. I tried to watch it as a parody, otherwise it was unwatchable. The scenes and dialogues didn't make any sense. 1 out of 5 just for the laughs. What fans wanted: a carefully thought out fantasy epic that took great care to respect the source material and tell a compelling story. What we got? Xena Warrior Princess. Horrible writing, bad plot and characters. It's painful to watch. The name Lord of the Rings should be removed from the title. I'm done watching. So boring. So what's the theme? It's not really Tolkien. It's badly written and badly acted. Hence a 39% audience score. And I wouldn't be surprised if that's been manipulated up in some way. This is why they need the magic spell. And unfortunately for them, they've used the magic spell so many times, it doesn't seem to have much power left. Anyway, please subscribe, like, and share. Sharing really helps me out. I thank you for doing that. I will see you next time.